Hey friends, I wanted to do a video on why I was so tearful on day 73 of my Appalachian Trail through hike. I don't cry very often, and when I do, it usually means something significant is going on inside of me. On day 73, I had birds circling me all day, and I don't know, it was kind of weird in that it reflected where I was going on my thoughts inside that day. I was realizing as I went, and you might be thinking, it's the rocks, it's the heat, the temperature, the lack of food, the fatigue, the yada yada, not seeing family. And all those are true that day. And a lot of those things made me angry, like the rocks. But what happened that day is I was realizing that to complete the through hike in the time that I have, I would have to do 20 miles a day, every day, no zeros. Um, Not even any Neros unless I did way more than 20 miles one day. And I just thought, I can't do that, um, especially through the whites and things like that. So I kind of got to this place of, I think I might have to be done. I mean, I don't see what to do. I don't know what to do. So I was grieving. And in the midst of that grief, to get spiritual for a moment, and I was stubbing my toe on rocks and using words I don't usually use. By the way, I think there's a reflex right on the tip of my toe for some of those words. Not good, but in the midst of that, I'm basically crying out. It's like, I need a way out, a way through this. It's the day of birds. They've been circling me with a doomsday message. I need another bird to come and give me um, a way through this. So I got through my kind of spiritual grieving moment, and I'm just in this weird neutral space of just existing and stumbling along. And then I come around the corner, and there's um, burned forest area, and it's just devastated. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. That's exactly how I'm feeling. I'm walking through my feelings. Then the trail took another turn, and all of a sudden, in the middle of all that burned devastation, there's a little green. It's the exact path of the trail. It was so weird. It was so cool though. And then moments later, I turned and I saw the sun as it's starting to get lower in the sky, shining through the trees. Just a beautiful light. And I looked back at the trail, and it was just beautiful. And I had this sense that there's hope. There must be a way through this devastation. And I said, Lord, I need you to send me a bird with a message other than the ones that are circling above me, one that's like got hope in it. And so I continued walking on. I was just kind of listening and walking along, stumbling along actually. Came around a corner and there's a group of hikers setting up tents. Looks like they were done for the night. One of them was in the trail with a dog, which was very nice because I missed my dog. Pet the dog, talked to the hiker, and she said, how you doing today? I said, I'm fine. She kind of looked at me with a real gentle, nonverbal head tilt of, really? And I said, okay, I'm not fine today. And she says, the rocks are really terrible, aren't they? And we both just started laughing. And then we started talking about our through hikes, what we were trying to accomplish, and how they were going. And I ended up telling her about my foot injury and that it was starting to hurt again on this trail, and I was worried about the rocks coming up, and I don't have enough time, so I'm feeling like it's over, like I can't finish. Well, she said we're all flip-floppers, and for those of you that don't know what that means, it just means you start at some point in the trail and you go to the end, and you go back and you do the other part of the hike, usually going the opposite direction, but not necessarily. And she said, have you thought about flipping over this rocky section while your foot's not ready for it, continuing on, and then coming back, flopping back to it later, and finishing? And I thought, dang, that's a pretty good idea. I had not thought of that. And so that would be different than a yellow blaze where you just skip it to skip it and to shorten your hike intentionally. So all of a sudden I had this thought, wow, I could flip flop and it'd be flip flop Sylvania. um, and then as we were talking a little while longer, you know, she said, "What's your name?" My name is Mishap. Bad luck. And she said, I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Avis." It means bird in Spanish. Can you believe that, friends? Her name is Birds in Spanish. And I was just praying earlier that I needed a way through this from a bird. Well, I think I got my answer. So once I was comfortable with this flip-flop idea, I had to determine, where do you flip and flop? So what made the most sense to me was, given that my foot wasn't fully healed and it needed to be for this section, it made a lot of sense to flip-flop over this brutal rocky section to avoid further injury and come back at a time when I was healed and maybe the weather was better for me for hiking this, and when I had time to do it slowly, because honestly the locals all said you shouldn't try 20 miles through this section anyway. You should slow down and do maybe 10 or 15. And so that made a lot of sense. And again, if I did that, I would probably miss out on most of the state of Maine. Didn't want to do that. So that's kind of how it came about. And even though Rocksylvania sort of has a bad rap, the people there living in and around it are really cool, really nice. So I just want to make that clear also. Anyway, I hope it makes sense now what the tiers were about and why, and what the plan is. We're going to hike down to Port Clinton in the morning or the next day, and find a way to get up north of the worst of the rocks, where it'd be safer for me to continue with the condition that I was in. And then we're going to continue hiking all the way to Maine, and I'm going to get back to my usual determination. And by doing that, it'll buy me back enough time that I can hike more realistically on a daily basis, and we have a real shot at making it. And then hopefully can come back in the fall and try that Rocksylvania section of Pennsylvania. In the next video is us leaving camp, going down to town, and end up at the barber shop. And I can't say enough good things about the barber and Port Clinton. Man, he is a really awesome person. All his trail magic in his barber shop. He's got connections. Found me a ride up to the next town. And another person that I had called a while back called back and said, "Hey, we can pick you up from there and take you up to the north side of the rocks." So we're going to move fast all the way to New Jersey, and then we'll continue in New Jersey from there.